Advertising hypnoid suggestion, repetition of the same formula again and again by the influence of an authoritative image like that of a society lady or of a famous boxer who smokes a certain brand of cigarette by attracting the customer and at the same time weakening his critical abilities by the sex appeal of a pretty girl, by terrorizing him with threat of BO or halitosis, by stimulating daydreams about a sudden change in one's whole course of life brought about by buying a certain shirt or soap. All these methods are essentially irrational. They have nothing to do with the qualities of the merchandise and they smother and kill the critical capacities of the customer like an opiate.
Hello. So, we're going to be talking about freedom, escape from freedom. So, basically, Escape from Freedom by Eric Fromm talks about the fascism. It's actually um, the psychology, the psychoanalysis of fascism is what Eric Fromm talks about. Like, what compels people to choose fascism? Like, what compels people to give their own freedom, give away their own freedom for a regime for a fascist regime, for an authoritarian regime. Like, how can you give up your own freedom? I mean, that's something that he puts forward. Like, and he says that there's a positive freedom and there's a negative freedom. And when he talks about a negative freedom, he says that the freedom that we have in our society that makes us feel isolated and small, that is the negative freedom. And positive freedom is that freedom which makes us more in tune, in touch with ourselves, so that we can grow ourselves and we can expand and we can grow towards happiness and expansion and growth. And uh, that's basically his thesis. And he attacks capitalism, and he says that capitalism's perspective on having and acquiring this wealth that has created this sense of this thing that we have to in life, we have to just aim and just have as much as we can. It's not about in the moment. It's not about a growth. It's not about a happiness. It's just about having as much capital as possible, and that he labels as negative. That makes us more isolated, because that makes us more isolated in the sense that it makes us more hostile towards towards the people around us. Like, I have this sort of hostility and also resentment that my that other people, if they have more than I have, or if they have acquired more wealth than I have acquired, then I feel this resentment towards these people, because essentially, how can they acquire that much money, and how can I acquire that less? So it's just impromptu. I haven't like decided. I have read this, but I haven't decided. So I'm taking pauses to sort of understand it, because I think freedom. This book has a lot of ideas, So you have to like dig into it, because it's so much that it's kind of difficult to like think about it. So you have to like take time out to like think. And so yeah, burning there is this ambition, burning ambition for fame. We have this ambition, and that is quite evident, because when you don't have any self, he also talks about this thing that we don't have any self. We want other people to admire us. We want, because we have so much doubts about ourselves, that other people's validation, that is going to give me security. Their thoughts about me, and that is going to reflect my self-esteem. That is going to reflect uh, my I would say my um, importance. And he talks about, uh, as he is a psychoanalyst, he talks about that people might say one thing, but they might mean another thing. That people, and they might create rationalizations. For example, you might say that I do smoking because of this. But maybe that's not the reason. Maybe you have rationalized that statement, and maybe it's something else underneath that rationalization that you have just created. But there's something unconscious. So there's always this irrational, unconscious side, and he talks about the split in our psyche. He talks about the that we have that we just have we put rationality in one box, and we have put emotions in one box, and that has created split in our personality. In order to heal ourselves, in order to bring integrate our personality, we need to accept both the sides of our personality. We need to think, and we need to feel as well. We cannot discount this feeling and emotions that we have. We need to think. But and he talks about critical thinking as well. He talks about this amazing concept that we might think that we think, but maybe we are not the one who is thinking. We're thinking of the because we have never because of the see if you've read something, if you've read the newspaper, and then somebody asks you what is the opinion on this particular thing, and you're like, This is my opinion." That is, you are not doing the thinking, because thinking has to be new and original. And new and original, not in the sense that I thought about something that somebody did not, in the sense that I thought about something because I have thought about it, in the sense that I haven't read something, but I used my own faculty of thinking, to reach the conclusion. I didn't read something, or then um, you know saw something. But nowadays we see this conformity that people just they just blindly follow. They don't even know that thing that they're saying is not their thoughts. It's just that's adopted, and they think that that's my thought. So subtle suggestion is always there. You see hypnotic suggestion. He also talks about advertising. He talks about how much of this is advertising's problem, like how much of this sort of having, and this sort of craving for money and for capital things and all that, the consumption, the consumerism that goes along in our society, is how much of that is a product of advertising. Advertisements are to blame for this whole thing, because advertisement does not talk about the real that this is the product, and this is something that it does, and this is something it does not do. What it does is, if you look at advertisements, it's kind of like, it's kind of pretty irrational. Maybe they're using a repetitive formula, maybe using sexual urge or sexual interest, like some hot girl, or some kind of perfume that they're gonna spray that perfume all over, and then it will attract other people, and other girls will come. They were racing, and they were like, "Oh, look at that X," and all that. So it's kind of crazy. Like, it doesn't mention anything about the product, but it mentions how attractive you will be, or how amazing you will be if you just get this on yourself. And if you're not dating, or if you don't have this and you have that, you're gonna you can uh, get this product, you get it. Things will just like automatically shift, and you'll just be automatically that person that you always wanted to be. It's pretty irrational. And it's not just that it's this is the only thing that it pervades this, but it also pervades political campaigns. A lot of money that is invested in in those people. Like, the information is controlled by this, like the money that is put into the advertising. So the advertising is basically is where the money is. So they're giving you one, like a sort of, I would say, it's irrational, in the sense that it's still the same hypnotic suggestion. So a TV is radio, whatever, is ruled by this hypnotic suggestion that is whole advertising is based on this, and we don't get to use our critical thinking. We suppress our thinking. It's the suppression of critical thinking. Thinking begins at a very early age. We just being told to read something and then just not think about it and suppress it. So he talks about also the suppression of emotions, that children suppress emotions at a very early age. Then told to not be hostile to some people, to not have some hostility towards other people, and they're told to just be happy and to be friendly, and that's like that creates this fakeness in a child, because they sort of tries to cover up what they really want to say, and that I think that's something that I've seen, that that there comes a time when you become fake, that you don't really see, because and there's another toxic positivity aspect, that now we have to just pretend to be happy all the time. There's this toxic positivity going on in our culture, that we have to be happy all the time even though you don't want to be happy. That you need to be happy because yes, happy. And he talks about primary ties. Primary ties are basically your ties towards your parents, the ties towards your nation, your culture, and your mother. That's the umbilical cord. You cut the umbilical cord, but still the ties remains. So, but individuation is a natural process, and you move towards that, right? So he talks about you have to move. You have to, right? But it's a necessity that you move towards that. Before you haven't moved towards that, towards individuation, it's not submission, because your ego is a part of your mother's ego. There's no conflict, but when the conflict happens, your ego separates from your mother. Now you need to consciously start becoming independent in terms of your thinking, critical thinking, in terms of your emotions. You don't need to depend on other people for your emotions. Whatever you're feeling, be receptive to that, be receptive to what you are thinking, and don't repress anything. That's like the whole message of the book. Is freedom is something that could be a burden, and because you feel isolated, and and because of that you want to give that up, but he suggests you then don't give that up. Don't submit. You can create a new sort of solidarity, a new kind of love relationship with the world. You are a part of nature, you're a part of this universe, so why not uh, use it to cultivate solidarity and love for humans and for people. It's not just for a particular person. He talks about love and talks about selfishness. That love is a feeling. It's just something that's there. You don't Selfishness is something, it's a craving for more, and it's never satisfied. But love is just there. It's an inherent property that you can like share with everyone. And the kind of love that we think that is love is masochistic, sadomasochistic attachment. And there's a beautiful point about sadism and masochism, that they goes together. Sadism is when you want to control other people, when you want to them to depend on you, and masochism is when you are so fucking submissive on other people. So sadomasochism, he says that it goes together, and yeah, he says that it's found that if you are powerful and you think that my right to power and my right to exercise power lies on subjugating other people, then you're not powerful. You're truly not powerful, because for you to be truly powerful, you need to stand alone, and you need to accept that. But does not mean that you should not interact with the world and make good, beautiful solidarity and love like relationships. You have to find another way to deal with the world and its relationships. And yeah, and you need to accept and respect your uniqueness, and not um, and be genuine. Accept your uniqueness, be genuine, know your uniqueness, but at the same time you have to connect with the world as well. You cannot be isolated, because isolation is something that is very difficult for people, and that's what's happening, because we don't want to connect with other people, because we feel hostile to them, because we need to somehow outbeat them, and somehow it's not necessary. So but we must, and they like Eric Fromm says that you need to the problem with the culture is that it's a lot of isolation, it's a lot of loneliness that we have in our culture, and we need to find ways that we can attack, like, and we can find to connect with other people. And also security is not something that someone would give, and that's, I think, love and security is basically, people sort of think that love gives you security, which is not the case. Security comes from yourself, and when you fully express yourself. That's what Eric Fromm says, that security is when you respect yourself. The problem with our society is we don't respect ourselves. We are fakers, actually. We don't, and so because of that, we have a pleasing personality. Even personality is something that we need to have according to the rules of the market. So we don't have a personality, we have a fakeness to it, attached to it. And because of that, we have a lot of insecurity, and we want other people to like us. And fame, this whole craze for free fame, I don't think that it's just because of that, but just because of our insecurity. It could be because of our insecurity, but we see a lot of, one night, what do you call, overnight successes, people with overnight success. So I think that also creates this sort of illusion that I can be one of them, and that creates this thing, oh my god, I want fame, and we also have, like, we've grown up thinking that that life is about money, success, and fame is about, like, we have, I think we've grown up with watching dramas and watching movies in which success amounts to having wealth, or having a family, the wife that you always wanted, or the family that you always wanted, or that person. I mean, success is somehow linked to a person, somehow linked to wealth, or somehow linked to fame. So I think that's also. And so Eric Fromm talks about the society has an impact on you. Society, from the way get go, has a deep effect on you. So you cannot just say that society does not have an effect on you, because that sort of um, makes you and breaks you in that sense. So I really love this, and so it was a very difficult book to I would say it's a very difficult book to read, because it's so much. I had to read it like so many times to actually understand it. I wrote the notes and about this book, and then I have to reread to sort of get this. And now I think that's the parts that I think I would miss, but I just try to be as, I would say, as comprehensive as possible. And he talks about Hitler's personality, which is kind of sadomasochistic, and he was so this is basically what fascism is. And there's another part that I think is very interesting, and that part is moral indignation. In Pakistan, there's so much moral indignation that happens, that you just see people commenting on models and superstars' photos and saying, "Cover yourself up. How are you showing so much skin? You look at your clothes. Look at their wedding extravaganza." And and it's not just that, but also we talk about our own family. If someone is rich, just happen to be in a family, and they're doing something, or they're wearing something, we also are hostile towards them. So hostility is very much common, and there's a resentment that goes along with that, and that resentment is, and envy is actually rationalized as moral indignation. That we are not really morally, we say, oh my god, this is very wrong, morally it's wrong to do this, to celebrate weddings like that, to wear certain clothes, it's bad, it's morally wrong. But actually it's the resentment or the envy that's making them do that, and they don't even know that, they don't even realize that. And that's the thing, that unconsciously we do so many things that we don't realize, and we think all in the name of, that I'm doing it for, like, for a purpose, like that's a rationale behind that. And that's what Hitler also does. Hitler has a rationale, and he rationalized his acts, because he said, "Okay, I'm that's for the German people, that's for Germany, that's for nationality," although there was no such thing as nationality there. It was this there was this and that's just Hitler. But the whole German, like, it's just a joint conspiracy between Hitler and the people. It's not that Hitler does it, but it's also the people. Hitler cannot alone do all of that. It's not that Hitler was powerful enough to just like tell other people to do what they want to do, but it's just something they could have done. Like these majority of like the majority, man, they were people. They could have done. They could have rebelled, but they didn't rebel. They just let things happen. Let the tyranny happen, and that's something we also see in Palestine, Kashmir. Things are happening. People are supporting. Regardless of what is happening, people are still supporting these people, these governments, and all. So yeah, that happens, and I think um, until we find a way out in which we accept that the things that we do that cannot be rationalized, I think we'll still be conformist to the society, still conform to the society. Yes, I think that's it. I think I have done not a bad job, not a good job even, but just a mediocre job.